Hey everyone, and welcome to the Black Culture Matters podcast, brought to you by Catch for Drip. And I'm Magatte Wade, the founder and CEO of Skin is Skin, the lip balm on a mission. You can find us at skiniskin.com. And here with me is Bishop Omar Jawar, the founder and CEO of Urban Specialist. Hey Bishop.
Hello.
This Black Culture Matter podcast is brought to you by Catch for Drip with Magatte and Bishop Omar, and it is a video show where we host together the cultural icons of our times, and we, bring them so that they can share with our Black listeners, the tips and insights that they have as to how they too can live good, happy, healthy lives. You can find us on all social media platforms at Catch for Drip TV, although I don't watch TV, right, Bishop?
I don't get it, man, but I just...
Bishop, TV is a waste of time, Bishop. It's a pure waste of time. And you know what they said?
Other than Catch the Drip TV, all other forms of waste time.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. No, TV is different. It's different. I'm sorry. Okay. Bishop, did you have a good weekend? How was your weekend?
I had a wonderful weekend. It was packed. It was full of stuff. We had documentaries that we were trying to do. We're getting ready for Heal America Minneapolis. We had an outdoors church service where we had what we call Park and Praise, where we brought all of these people together. It was exhausting. It was exhilarating, but exhausting. It was hot. So I think I'm recovering from all of the heat too, man. So I'm all right. I feel good. I feel all right.
Well, you always feel all right. So we're glad to have you here. Right. Well, Bishop, what based on the last session we left on, I was rather heated, and then you're going to be like, what's new? Well, that was a different type of heated.
And then I saw your Facebook page too, and I saw your when they asked how are you feeling, I saw what you put.
Yeah.
I said,
yeah,
he still is frustrated about that.
Well, I'm still thinking about doing a petition. The thing is, I'm still trying to figure out what's going on with this poster. And Bishop, it is so funny because some people brought to my attention that poster was created back in 1990 by some white chick, and she was doing corporate training. So now, to me, it makes it even worse because. So what do you mean? You mean that for the past 30 years or so, this woman has been peddling this crap around in corporate America?
Yes.
This is what she's been telling people in corporate America, that Black people technically are inferior or incapable of even adhering to the rules of even a corporation. And worse yet, as I found out that she still has a consulting firm consulting with corporations. I think FedEx is one of her customers as of today. That to me is a problem. And the fact that no one is actually really talking about that fact, not that I've seen. Maybe there are some people. I'm going to check into it. So again, I was going to go and propose a petition against the curators at the museum who allowed for such a thing to go up. But now I'm going deeper and deeper in the source, and depending on what I find, then it may help me figure out what to do. So I'm making progress, Bishop, but it's weirder by the minute as I find out more and more. So I thought today, it reminded me of something that I wanted to bring up with you today, because when you see such a post, and so you and I, we talked about it. There is the post, fine, and I think both you and I, we agree to say that beyond being racist, it's even this concept of being inhuman. At least that's how a friend of mine described it. But so it's one thing that it's a poster. By the way, they took it down, they apologized, and they said that they can see why this is a non-conversation starter. I'm like, really? You had to wait for some blowback to happen?
Okay, but, that was progress. It's good.
Well, wait. The reason why I'm not so excited, beyond them taking it down, is the fact that Bishop, people, this is a belief that's out there. And the same people who thought it was okay to have this at the museum are still, as of today, invited at very influential tables where we are discussing even how to adapt education in this country to that type of poster, to what this poster believes. If indeed you believe that we are inferior, yet, oh, you're gonna come and help us with poor Blacks, they're out there coming up with things like black math. Remember we talked about black math, this idea of diluting correct math, because Black people can't get math otherwise. You have to dilute it for them, which is called black math. So, and you also heard that the Ivy League schools, universities decided to not use SAT scores. That's once again another direct link, because it's almost like, oh, SATs are going to disadvantage people of color, so we're going to remove it. You see what I'm saying? So you and me, we're sitting here and saying, we don't accept the lesser than status. And here they are saying, you are lesser than, therefore we're going to adapt to your status. The bigotry of lower expectation. So the sign is one thing. At least they were honest and put it up there. But it's not because the sign disappeared that belief disappeared. It is still very much here. And worse, they're making policies and rules very real based on that acceptance of our lesser than status. And that's problematic. So today, I guess, what I was interested in sharing here a little bit for some of the people who are listening to us and might not know all of this. Bishop, when you think of the, did you know that when people, like when you think of Africa, this big continent, right? With 54 countries, 55, depending on how you're counting. I'm sure most people think that, oh, it's this big homogeneous place where they all, at least Black Africans, all think the same, behave the same, do the same. What if I told you, you know the difference that you can imagine between, let's see, between an Italian and a German? If I was to ask you to compare, in general, and we know we should never generalize, but we're going to do it here for a little bit. If you had to compare in your mind, like, how would you describe the Italian and the Germans? Like, what would be the biggest differences between them that jump at you, that you would be like, oh, Italians, I'm sure they're this way, or what's that comparison you have? What do you think?
I probably would say their food taste, their reactions, how they react, the styles and vehicles, the way they dressed. I would talk about the wines. I would just talk about from a cultural side, they have so much difference. They are absolutely not just homogenized. They both are from Europeans. Nah, they have different styles. It's
right?
A flavor. Right. So yeah, I can see that.
Well, what if I told you that, so when you can see there's a stark difference. They're both Europeans, right, but never in a million years would you say, oh, they're all Europeans, meaning like they do the same thing. You see, when you think of Italians, I mean, I lived in France for most of my life, so traveled all of those places, went to school with a bunch of, like Europe, it's also small. But in any case, what if I told you that, for example, you get the same type of difference between, if I told you that as a Senegalese, I feel like we're closer to the Italians in ways, and as my Rwandan friends are in a way closer to the Germans. What if I told you that? Did you know that? Do you know that, me from Senegal, we're like, the Senegalese are known for just being like this, we're like these variety people in a way, like very like on the move all the time. And the Rwandans are more like, they're more into rule following, for example. So, much
right, like
more.
You're telling me in the run, they believe in time. Time is a, Senegalese is like, we get there when we get there. But like, that's time, right? That's the difference, right? You told me that, right?
Right? But take this example too. When people think of Africans, they're like thinking of Black Africans. They're thinking, most of the time they're thinking drums, right? When you're drumming, people think that's something that really drumming and the way the African dance, like in their mind, Africans, they drum, they dance, they jump up in the air, and blah, blah, blah. All of that, we move our hips and we twerk and all of this stuff, right? That's what people think. Well, what if I told you that the Rwandans do not dance with their hips? Actually, they frown upon it. They think it is so not, you know, like elegant. You know, the Rwandans, they dance like this. You know, they dance more with their shoulders and more like ballet type, you know, moves. Did you know that?
I did not. I thought
Isn't
Ron.
that funny?
Yeah, it is. I thought they was twerking. I had no idea. No, I'm
Yeah,
joking.
no,
All my
very true.
London thing, but that's interesting. So how do the Senegalese? How do y'all dance?
Oh, we are the types who are more to the sound of the drums, very energetic dance. We do a lot of, you know, like jumps and using our hips a lot. We use our hips a lot, and everybody moves. Everything moves, especially from the hips. So, you know, it's a very moving dance. And then, you know, then if I take you to Nigeria, and in Nigeria, a specific, you know, people called the Igbo. Have you heard about the
I
Igbos
have
in
heard of the
Nigeria?
Igbo. Yeah, I've heard of the Igbo.
Yeah, so the Igbos are the ones who would call themselves, you know, maybe the Jews of Africa, you know, very entrepreneurial mindset and all of that stuff. So all I'm trying to say is there's just all of these different, what do you call it? There's all of these
Cultures,
different cultures, exactly.
right?
And very different, varied from one another. So that's why, again, for that poster to just come out and say all Black people are this way, that was kind of ridiculous in its way, in its own. So I thought it was important. And what about you, Bishop? Can you tell me a little bit, maybe more about a lot of these other, you know, different Black cultures that you think exist in America? Like when I think of, you know, like the Blacks in maybe in, especially as represented maybe in Atlanta, I'm thinking about this professional type, and are they different? Are they different? See, like that was before I was better educated. But what are the different pockets of Black cultures that you can identify in America
let me
that are
give
all?
let me give you some Black. Okay, so you got the Southern Blacks, and the Southern Blacks, we have that kind of, we had a drawl, and then, you know, they call us the country boys. See, these country boys got country toys. We got big whips, and we like that stuff kind of bright. You know, we the big hat boys. We wear our jeans starched, and you know, and so we got a whole, you know, kind of flavor that we have. Then you have the kind of Eastern and the Northeast New York type, and they tend to be a lot more aggressive, you know. Country kind of laid back. They tend to be a lot more aggressive and a lot more in your face about stuff. You got guys who from California, they seem to be more laid back, less aggressive. You got guys who are, and you know, females and males. I'm saying guys, but I'm not singling.
Wait. Yeah.
You know, we had a kind of, you know, here's one thing you'll know. If you are trying to culturally identify, it's the sound of your voice, and it's the way you process interaction. Country people are less suspicious. You know, we wave and we how you doing? You know, people seem like from the East are more anxious. Like when I went to New York, I never forget when I was in New York for a while. Man, I was like, why is everybody walking so fast? And everybody's getting out the way and getting in and getting out. You know, it was just real combustible. You know, you could tell we on a mission, you know. In the South, you know, you're going to get it done.
And we're talking about Black people, right? We're talking
Yeah,
about
I'm
Black
talking about
people
Black
in the
folks. I'm
right?
talking about straight Black
Yeah,
folks. I'm talking about in the
yeah.
five boroughs. I'm talking about Brooklyn and Best. I'm talking about all of that. And so
He's
it's
like,
just,
why are you going so fast?
yeah, like what y'all doing? No, bro, we got to get, you know. I'm saying, bro, chill, you know. But in the West, it was almost like it was a hybrid of country and you know, kind of with the stars in their eyes, because you know, you got Hollywood, you got LA, you got San Diego, you got a different kind of climate, different kind of feel. In the Midwest, it's different. In Chicago, in that area, it's different. You know, it's all of us got our own little different flavors. So that's a very good point, that when you're just trying to go into a cultural moment, you realize the culture is so pluralistic. It's so many layers. It is not like one thought. And then you got those who are business, those who are, you know, those who are hustlers. Even in the gang culture, all the cultures that I've ever been into, there are distinct characteristics that you wouldn't know just on first glance. So that's a good point.
Very good, very interesting. And talking about that too, because obviously on our show, we've been focusing mostly on, because, you know, like you and I, we'd like to always say, because we truly care and because we truly believe and trust that all Black people should be able to live healthy, you know, productive lives, we definitely celebrate all those who are already doing well. But the reason why we focus on the part of the subcultures that are not so doing so well is because we want to pull them up, right? So that's why we focus on them. You know, when something is working well, you leave it alone, it's working well. But you go and you look for the people who need more help and more support, and you kind of address that so you can help lift them up. And that's what we're doing here, you and I. But tell me a little bit more, though. So just like there are countless. When I look in the country, in America, there are millions of Black people who are doing just fine, going on with their lives. And but what have you found some of these healthy subculture pockets to be? Like, there are the professional types. I mean, what do you think they all have in common? All the Black cultures, the Black cultures that are doing well in America. What do they seem to all have in common, according to you?
Well, that's a very good question. I think the biggest commonality is discipline. That it is not what it is a consistent planning and discipline, and it's execution. You don't look up into success that is consistent and growing and layered. You don't, that's not, you know, you just look up into that. You have to have a discipline. So whatever that area is, there seems to be a discipline, and they seem to all have a drive. They're driven. So it's not, and it's driven by, and it's normally the drive is internal. They're not being spooked into, man, you better, oh man, this is going to happen. You know, it's not like that. It is an internal drive. They seem to have a great foundation with their families. Even if the family is not blood, they have a core group that holds them accountable and truthful and all of that. So it's like these, like you can kind of see those, vestiges of how it looks when it's the right thing. And normally it turns out pretty well, you know, for those, you know. Now, I don't mean anything challenged and all of that, you know. Obviously, it's all kinds of stories that we have, but those kind of are the common groups that I see, and it's pretty accurate. You know, you can tell. You know, Michael Jordan, just for instance, or LeBron, you know, or Kobe, whomever we want to call it, and God rest his soul, but some of them were and Dion, who is my close friend. One thing is good, great, unbelievable work ethic and discipline. Prime, he gets it. They are not you know, non-disciplined individuals. Success does not come without you putting in the work, and then they're not afraid of the stage. But that's what I see.
It's very interesting that everything you just cited as what you have seen to be common traits for guaranteeing success in the various Black cultures you've seen in America, what you have identified to be common denominators among them, it's very funny that it's exactly what that poster used to say. It's typical white traits, but we will leave that alone. So Bishop, here I wanted to go back, something that you said, you touched upon the word family, and to me, I totally relate. It totally makes sense to me, because report after report after report, research after research after research, it does show that children who are actually brought up in a two parents household systematically do better than those who don't. It doesn't mean that those who don't make it somewhere, but it is that research, sorry, whether you like it or not, it is there. It is consistent in its finding, and it finds that children brought up in a two parents household. And you notice that I said two parents. We're not going here into what are the, you know, are the parents, one man, two parents household is important. So if that is the case, and we also know that the number of, you know, Black children who are born into such households is a pretty low number, especially since the, the 60s. How and what do you think we should do so that 20 years from now, we can reverse that? But 20 years from now, a lot of the Black children being born are going to be born to, a two parents household rather than where it's at now. Like what should we do? What are you already helping your, the people that you guys are intervening on with the OGs? What you guys are doing already, and also beyond that, what else do you think should be happening so that 20 years from now we have reversed that?
Well, these are great questions, and I got a question for you too about that. But let me say this: that there are multiple areas that we can operate in. First is the obvious. People have to see what they want to be, so we have to promote the images of pro-family and got to promote that and let a person see it, and let that be a standard that we don't say, well, this is negotiable. We can't make those things negotiable. We have to say this is the standard and hold ourselves and others up to the standard. But that's one. But the other part of it is there's a cultural narrative that we have to intercept and truly intentionally turn another way. There was a time where beauty was not necessarily sexuality. There was a time when manhood was not determined by sexual conquest only. So those things are cultural, but we have to participate in those cultural narratives in every way possible, from what we sing, what we write, the way we greet each other. We have to just have an all-in approach that creates a new normal for this 20-year pathway that you're talking about. And then we call it, we call this invasion. I'm describing invasion, intrusion, and institute without saying 3I. But the other part is we have to challenge institutions that are a part of our normal world to be promoters of what we see as vital. See, if there's not mentoring, education, and economics, there is a great chance that a child will end up in a violent and underprivileged lifestyle. But most of our institutions are not designed, and I'm talking about church institutions, our social services institutions. There are some institutions that are not looking at this globally. They look at it daily, and I understand it because normally we're trying to just handle our daily things. But we have to have like this new kind of conversation that overlays the other, and we must hold our institutional leadership up to the same standard and say, hey, this is a crisis. And not just this is a crisis, this is an opportunity. So I don't want to always be the fire alarm. I want to say this is an opportunity for us to change the narrative. Now, let me ask you something. I see in Africa, is there the same rate of divorce or the same rate in Senegal? Not just Africa, in Senegal, from where you are in the world, you have been a part of because you've been traveled and you know the world. Is that the same rate of separation, divorce, and children being born out of wedlock? Is that equivalent, or is it a much higher level of sustainability in the family?
Yeah, much higher level of sustainability in the family, much lower level of divorce rates and of children being born out of a two parents, household. That's just not the way our culture is. That's just not where our culture is. Our culture is very much about, like I said, my culture, at least in Senegal, frowns upon, a child being born out of wedlock. It doesn't mean that you're going to be rejected necessarily by your family. Unfortunately, some families do reject you, but nowadays the norm is more, they still, they hold you, they still are with you. But it is a big, it is not something that's going to be celebrated. It is not something that, so I think our children, our youth is very much is born into this environment where the norm is just, yeah, this is what you do. The norm is you try to first, get a job. But that's another thing too. Before you even try to have a wife or whatever, you try to have an income. Of course, we don't. I'm always talking about how Africa, how we need many more jobs, but there's the informal sector. So people are all working in the informal sector. But whether in the informal sector or the formal sector, they know they have this, they understand, get a job first, you got to be able to sustain yourself, and then, proceed to get married, and then proceed to have children, and so on and so forth.
So watch this. See, the reason I asked that I was hoping that would be the answer, because see, this is another thing. It's another narrative shift that we have to do. See, so poverty should not be the precursor to separation and disintegration of family. That's another norm that we kind of accept, and it's not true. We believe, yeah, man, because we're broken. But you said it's 25th most impoverished place in the world, but it still has a high rate of marriage and value. See, so now, of course, you are trying to turn that corner so that it will not have those kind of impoverished ideas, but you're still saying that even in the midst of an impoverished nation, we still have values that we hold true. And that's another thing. Yes. We cannot keep giving ourselves the excuse of poverty and racism to say that our family interaction should be disoriented. That's not a good enough excuse, and we have too much to lose to keep doing it like that. Go ahead.
Exactly. No, and it brings me up to something else. And I think once I tell you this, it will just show you the need for, I think for us, I've thought about this for a long time, because for the longest time I compared, because, it is true. When I first came to this country and I was hearing about all the struggle in the, especially in the urban Black culture, that had issues, it was always like everybody's putting it and trying to excuse what's going on in the name of poverty, right? In the name of poverty, when it was not in the name of racism. But when it comes to the poverty thing, I have to tell you, for us, we have a very strong sense of dignity, and I think that's a key word, a sense of dignity and honor. So we very much understand that a man's worth has nothing to do with their wealth necessarily. Like you're a human being, like the way your place in society will be dictated by your character. Of course, money does help, but if you have money and you do certain things, chances are, it's not going to earn you as much as respect as you think it could. But in any case, I just give you an example. In my culture, it is very clear. You might see somebody. If you are too poor to have clothes that don't have holes in them, right? You're too poor to have clothes that don't have holes in them. But guess what? At the very minimum, you can always wash your clothes. So it's not because you're poor and that you're wearing clothes with a hole in them, but your clothes will always be clean and ironed, even if it has a hole in it. You see, I think it's a beautiful image. It shows you everything that you need to know. It's this sense of this dignity still. Yeah, I might be so poor, but I don't have clothes without holes in them, but my clothes are going to be clean, because the fact that they're clean or not, I can do something about it. And the fact that I put it on me nice, and I always look like $1 million walking around. Yes, because we have this sense of dignity, this sense of, regardless of the circumstances. And that's just, that's how we roll in my culture. And then the other thing I would say is also, it is so funny because when I see the level, I shouldn't say the word funny. What I mean by that, it's mind-boggling to me when I see the youth in this country. The youth in America is, you have all of this cutting going on, Bishop. I'm sure you've heard of it, the cutting going on, especially among young girls. You know about the phenomenon, the suicide rate. The suicide rates, all the issues around mental illness, all, the violence, the drugs, all these drugs that they're consuming, the alcohol, all of that stuff, and the sex addiction, the game addiction, all of these crazy addictions that we're seeing. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that we don't have some of these issues back home, but you would be hard pressed. I mean, the whole suicide thing for us, it's just like, and we might be some of the poorest people in the world, but suicide to us is like, huh? I'm not going to say that 1, 2, 3 people here and there do commit suicide, but it's nothing like what you're seeing here. You have children, young people who don't have much, but I don't see them walking around shooting each other all over the place. With the parents, never a word louder than the other, unless the parent allows it, but otherwise it's not us. And I give you this example the other day. Michael was just sitting there, my husband, and he's American. And he was like, we were in Senegal, and there's this concert, right? And so the first band that was playing was a Senegalese band. So of course they're dancing. Like I told you, we're, moving our hips, doing all types of things. But but it was still all done in style and in good taste, right? Not something that your mom would be like covering her eyes, or your dad be like, what's this? Just something that all ages can take in its decency. And then all of a sudden there is this group that comes from the Congo. Remember when I told you how we're all very different? Like all over the continent, all of these different cultures. So this group from the Congo shows up, and they're twerking, mind you. But when you're twerking and the woman is twerking and her legs are her hands are on the floor, and she's wearing like short, like short shorts where basically as soon as she bends over, you see everything. So the whole thing together goes all the way from all of a sudden a fun dance, but yet innocent and, whatever, to now it is hypersexualized. I kid you not, Michael was just like, he could see the Senegalese kid in the audience, the Senegalese kids, we're talking 17, 18, 19, 20-year-olds who are watching these women with like their short jeans cut, almost to the bottom of a butt, with things like, and they were doing all of this. You would think that any other boy somewhere else would be like, like with the tongue down to the floor. But our boys were flat out embarrassed by it. They were embarrassed. All of a sudden you saw them, they stopped cheering. It was not about this whole thing like, pointing at fingers at women and saying, oh, you shouldn't dress. It had nothing to do with that. It was just like, you know what? This is not appealing to us. It was just not appealing to them. You see? So, and it had nothing to do with being, so I don't know how to explain it, but it's all of these things. And I have to say, I think you instill a certain taste in children from very early on, like what does a culture reward? What does it not reward? What does it respect? What does it not respect? And I think all of that then builds a set of taste, for the child. So, which means that later when they're on their own, somewhere they could do anything they want, you don't see them engaging in stuff. Like, it's just so funny. So that's why I think when immigrants are here, but their children still behave a certain way because they're probably still behaving the way of a parent's culture. They're still very close to it. And then maybe by the second generation, third generation, it tends to go away. They tend to become more like where they were born. But I think the whole thing is very interesting. And this is so big, Bishop, that a lot of people who have children, Senegalese people, parents, and I know it happens in other African, backgrounds. Mm-hmm. Senegalese parents, a lot of them, when they have children, especially in the US, especially boys, they send them home to be raised for the first few years until they pass adolescence, teen years, and then they come back. When they feel like they've been well formed within the culture and what we respect and do not respect, then when it's, they're done with that, training, then they bring them back. Of course, it has some other issues. I don't know if I could be able to be separated from my child and everything, but it's not like they're sending them to boarding school. They're sending them back to the grandma and to grandpa back home and to auntie and uncle and cousins who are back home, and then they come back. But I do know that in my culture, people worry so much about this, that this is a common thing to do. You raise your children are born here, then you send them back to Senegal, and then when they're done being, like when they gained enough of the values, then you bring them back, because now you know that when they get back, they're still going to be immune to the culture here. So that's why when you go to urban culture, yeah.
And let me go up. This is fascinating. Listening as you talk about this, I'm gonna tell you, back in the day, we used to do these rites of passages for young guys who were trying to find their way. And on the real, we may have to, Magatte, we may have to be the ones that create this counter-cultural exchange like that. Even though
Yeah.
we stick a Zoom, we might have to be Zooming Senegal ideas back into our homes and zoom in technology. You know, we may have to become not again, because that's our bias too. We see worth in wealth, so we assume that because they don't have wealth, they don't have worth. So we may try and always impose our norms on those from Africa. We may need to do the reverse and say, let's really have a true exchange. And I used to do this deal called positive exchange. It was really, but it was about that. It was about trying to find those exchange moments that could do some things that we take for granted until it's at that critical time. See, your character cannot be developed only in times of problems and crises and your character has to be slowly and meticulously put in you, that where those things, when the stressors come upon you, you will lean back to what it is that you truly have been raised in, not just those who you've been raised by. See, a lot of us, we look at who we've been raised by, but we forget what we've been raised in. Have we been raised in an environment of truth telling, of storytelling, of honor, of tradition, of, you know, those things you can't just act as if they're not important, because they are seriously important when it comes to how we respond during that critical moment where you got to make that decision. You got to make the decision of, she's saying no, but I feel like doing it anyway. Can you hear her no? When you have to make a decision on how you present your truth out. Is your truth going to be biased? Are you a liar? Are you always, do you live in dignity? I love that word. What is the dignity? And you know, now, and understanding that it's some dignified country black folk too that don't just think we ain't, all of us ain't out here showing out, man. I just want you to know that. All of us ain't.
Nobody's true.
Some of us.
But then, Bishop, you would see why also the work you're doing matters so critically to me. And what we're trying to accomplish also together matters so critically to me, because across, like in Senegal, we're thousands of miles away from the US, all right? There's an ocean separating us, right? Although our ancestors took that same journey backwards hundreds of years ago. But in any case, what I'm trying to say is something that you might not know is right now, this broken culture that we're talking about, as it relates to as it relates to a subpart of the urban Black culture, it is traveling across the oceans. It is finding its way to my country. It is finding its way to all over the continent in Africa. What do I mean by that? All over the continent, I am having young boys now and young girls basically wanting and trying to emulate this broken part of the urban culture that you and I talk about, and you have been working so hard at fixing. So what I'm trying to say here is, if we do not fix what's going on in the US, this gangrene is about to reach to the other side. It is about to reach to the other side. It's reaching through mediums, and it's reaching through platforms that the parents have no access to. This smartphone, the smartphone and the access to the internet and everything that's on it. Now, basically, the kids are forming a whole nother world, especially the kids who have access. So those who are poor, it's so funny because the poor kids are actually doing better than the kids who have access. Because the poor kids don't have access to a phone, and even if they have a phone, it's not like they can afford the data so they can watch the internet and all type of crap on it. So they're still kind of isolated, and their families can still, preserve them from all of this. But I am telling you, what is going on today in Southside Chicago, in South, all of these neighborhoods where the senseless violence that you're working on, and and also how it's translated through rap music and hip hop music, it is traveling. It is traveling. It has found some ears already. It's going to find more and more ears. So if we don't nip it in the bud here, we are at the risk of this now going and affecting the one place where we have 90% of the Black population in the world living, which is Black Africa. So today it's a smaller problem in America, but it is going to come. And so you see now why I am so interested, and I have a feeling, I have a sense of urgency to not only help my fellow, Black brothers and sisters here in America who are going through this, but to also make sure that it doesn't reach our shores, because then we have a much bigger problem. Imagine if what you're seeing here now is multiplied times 9. This is going to be crazy. So that's, Bishop, what's at stake here as well. That is what is at stake. I don't know if you knew it, but this is a big problem coming our way if we don't do anything.
Oh yeah,
there's something that is so. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm so aware. I'm so aware of that. I've seen it. When I went to Russia, it was interesting. One of the first graffiti signs that I saw, it said "Russia is a ghetto," and then I'm like, who gave them that understanding? But like I said, the speed of the culture now is that I can see it, and I can emulate it, and I can try my best to be a part of it. And so that's why it is important that we don't back down and don't vacillate and don't equivocate. We have to be strong in our stance, and we have to be, the scripture says, wise like serpents, but harmless as doves, in that we have to understand that some people are parroting what they believe is new norms or freedom or whatever, but we have to be able to take those poison pills out of their mouth before they swallow. And that's very difficult to do, because they clenching their teeth and they saying, and we say, open your mouth, because that's going to kill you. That's going to certainly injure you. That's permanent damage. That's brain damage. That's just silly. We got to, and then, but then we have to always point them toward the pathway of adventure, because that's what makes being young fun, is that there are possibilities. Right. So the way you do it is we say, let's open up this world of possibilities without the poisonous that comes with intentional digesting of those things that might kill you. Now, you're going to have some interaction with some of those things that might kill you, so let us vaccinate you. I know people don't like to do vaccines, but let me vaccinate you with some truth and some ideas and some standards and some guidelines and some, this is our last name, so we don't do this and we do act like this. Let me give you some of that, and then let me put some filters in front of your face so you don't just see raw life, because raw life can get raw scary. So we're gonna put you some good filters so you can kind of say, okay, that looks like love, but what is that really? That's just my feral attraction because my hormone is going there. Okay, so you understand it. So we got to start doing all of that stuff. That's when you ask, what do? We have to get really that inside of it, and then we have to create another world that says adventure can last in it, because there is nothing more adventurous than starting a business and becoming a great business leader. It's wonderful. It feels good. But if you don't see that, you say, well, where those folks at? You start looking around your culture and your neighborhood and saying, I don't see what they talking about. All I see is the same thing. So I'm just going to do what is convenient. But okay.
Right.
Talking too much.
That's right. No, you're not talking too much. I completely agree with you. And so I'm glad you, it's interesting what you just said about the Russia thing as well. But you can see how exportable this whole thing is. I don't know what about it makes it so appealing and exportable, but I agree with you. We have to make sure that youth can still stay. Freedom. Yeah, but freedom. Yeah.
See, when I sell freedom, see, to sell freedom, I have to convince you that you're a slave, number one. And then I got to show you who I think your slave holder is. So that's where the rebellion comes in. So I got to convince you first, they're just trying to limit, your mama don't understand this, They want to dance real solid and pretty, but this is going to, drop it like it's hot. Let's do that.
That's interesting. And
then freedom,
and Bishop,
kind of room. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, please. You said freedom what?
Freedom gives you room to explore. And with freedom without responsibility, you start exploring in areas that can damage your psyche and can change your trajectory. Look, I used to tell young ladies this. I said, hey man, you don't want to be the 16-year-old hot girl that turns into a 23-year-old welfare mama. You don't want to do that. You don't see that, but I can see it because you haven't met your 23-year-old self. And then you don't want to be the 23-year-old that's saying, man, I am stuck. Man, it's okay to be a welfare mom. It's okay. But you're stuck. So your 28-year-old self is saying, how can I become an entry-level person in life? And then your 34-year-old self says, I got to stay here to make sure that the ones that I created at my 17 and 23-year-old pit stops have a way that they can. And so now I am just shortening my spans, and I'm shortening my span and my reach. And then you become a tragedy with potential. And then something has to truly free you up again, whether it's spiritual or whether it's an opportunity. But that you don't have to take the long road. Like every surgeon does not say, now, the first thing that I did before I became a surgeon, I had a heart attack. Well, I don't have to have a heart attack to be a heart surgeon. You know, I can just go to school, you know. You know, that's kind of what I try to explain, that you don't have to do all of that in order to have a credible, adventurous journey that has some bumps. There's enough regular bumps that you don't have to create any. Anyway, I'm on my soapbox.
I know, I love that. I love that. And Bishop, what about the role of you spoke about that you brought up that concept so many times, the role of education. When we know that 40% of young Black men do not graduate from high school, that's a real problem. And it's not only that the issue of education in young men is not specific only to Black people, although the numbers there seem to be bigger, but it's all across the board through our society. At least in America, it seems like women are getting more and more educated at greater rates than guys. So, but here again, because our focus is on Black people, what do you think? Do you think it's important, first of all, to be educated? What's the role of education in all of this? And once again, I go back to my 20 years from now. What should we do now so that 20 years from now, we no longer have the fact that you have 40% of, these young Black men do not even finish high school, yet a lot of Black women have, a college degree. And that dichotomy, that huge gap between Black men over here and Black women over here, do you see that causing a problem? And if so, what do we do about that? Yeah. Because this is where I disagree with the feminists. The feminists are all about women. That's great. And me, you know me, I'm always about the underdog. So for the longest time, women used to be the underdog when it came to education, but at least in this country. But now that women have completely surpassed boys, at what? Are we going to now turn around and have to do for little boys what we did for little girls? Because this is what I despise so much. Whenever you think it's about just, focusing on one group at the expense of another one, because eventually that other one is going to become a minority, and then you have to start all over again backwards. So right. Here, this is where we are. So what do we do?
Magatte, the biggest thing that we can do, and I really mean this, is take those numbers so serious that it becomes a daily charge. We have to see it as a charge, like a real charge, that we are charged with doing this. And that is ensuring that a creative educational approach and intentional educational approach, all of that, we put it all on the table, that we do everything in our personal and cultural power to say that we must break the barrier of education as some type of optional entity that is trying to hold me back from it. Man, that's foolishness. That is not true. You gotta say it that clear. That you wrong. I am very clear with brother. That you're wrong on that.
Do you think it's a young boy's fault? Do you think it's on the
I think
parents or the
well, it's
adults
a
side?
combination. Yeah, it's a
Or
combination.
do you think it's education itself? Is there something that doesn't work for
Yeah,
boys and for maybe other boys?
yeah, it is a amalgamation. It's of all of it. It is a part of that. It's a part of this. It's a part of that. You know, it's kind of a, you know, my wife said to me today, they are given a choice to do virtual or in school, you know, going to school for my youngest daughter. And she was like, she chose virtual. I said, wait. She don't choose, you know, I choose for her. And I'm gonna give her some room to be in the choice room, but you don't make the choice, you know, you don't, because I got to know how she learned, because I'm thinking about her. She's a social person, but I'm weighing out the COVID situation, but you know, because I cannot afford for her to have a lesser educational opportunity because it's convenient, you know. So I'm gonna have to figure out, if you do that, then what do we do to supplement those things that you have to grow into, and it's so serious. So yeah, so that's on the parent and the child, and on how we educate, because I do believe that the educational framework is so limiting that it does not let creatives be creative and all kinds of other stuff. But that's another show. Point I'm making though is, we cannot deny the link between this and that. And you know what? We're going to have to stop, because I'm going to talk to you in about 30 minutes.
Yeah, I know, because we have another one coming up
And
soon.
you're going to make me use all my firepower here, because my brain is going, you tricky.
This is a deep conversation.
Going. You know how to get me going. You know what? Yeah, I see.
No, I get it. Everybody has to understand. In half an hour, we're hosting with Bishop again. There's going to be like a healing conversation that we have to prep for. So
with the Minneapolis people with Heal America, every time we're going to do a Heal America, Magatte is coming, because she was so powerful at our first Heal America. She really was. I mean, you really. I mean, one clip that I am showing to people a lot. No, I'm showing this clip that when you said that this country is the only country that has the ability to pull off something this lofty, not this event, but this idea of healing. And you gave, man, that was a bold example of how egregious a news reporter was, and how egregious another person was that was talking about an experimentation of individuals as if they were useless, but that outrage would have come immediately in an American society, and it would not. So I've been really using that as an example of why I say that we should be diligent and vigilant in our efforts. So with all that said, I got to get ready for that, because I got to see her in a minute. But this
we're definitely.
But this is deep, man. You really. I am so. About
Bishop,
this.
we have one more. We have one more, and so on our next session, we'll go deeper into all of this. But for today, let's just all go get ready for what's coming next. So, guys, thanks again for joining us to the Black Culture Matter podcast, which is brought to you by Catch the Drip with Magatte and Bishop Omar, a video show we host together to bring cultural icons to inspire our young Black listeners. You can find us on all social media platforms with the handle at Catch the Drip TV. Bishop, it was a pleasure as usual. I'll see you in half an hour on the other side, okay?
Your bomb that can change the world. You didn't say that part.
Yes, indeed. Okay, thanks. Thanks,
right,
Bishop.
30 minutes. Love you. All right.
Love you too. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.